All right, I think we're going to get started. We have about half of those folks that have registered, so we're going to go ahead and get started on today's webinar. You are at a webinar for the Charter School Facility Grant Program, otherwise known as the SB740 Program. This is our annual funding round webinar, so we're going to be talking about the 26-27 funding round. My name's Katrina Johansson. I'm the Executive Director of CSFA, and we're joined today by Elizabeth Mendez, our program lead, as well as Kim Nguyen, our program analyst, and Daniel Madrid, our program analyst. So with that, I'm going to turn the slide. Just a few housekeeping items. Your mics are muted and your cameras are turned off. So the system has done that. We are taking questions in the chat. So please go ahead and enter your questions into the chat or any comments. But please make sure that we stick to the 26-27 funding round and its application process. If you have questions about past rounds, we would appreciate getting those questions via email. Most questions will be responded to via email after the presentation. And then please enter your 26-27 questions, as I mentioned, in the chat or by email, and we'll make sure to respond to those. A quick reminder that the application portal is currently open, and that portal is located on the SB740 website, and we will be walking through the application during today's presentation. The purposes and takeaway for today's webinar are that the SB740 program provides grant funding to all eligible charter schools to reimburse facility rent or lease costs and other facility-related costs when there is program capacity. Schools must submit a new application each funding round, and we do not accept late applications. So thank you for being here today. Prior funding rounds have been oversubscribed, and we do anticipate the 26-27 funding round to be oversubscribed. In the January budget announcement from the governor, it looks like there's about $191 million being apportioned for the program, but we still have to go through the budget process. So we're not sure where program funding will land. Program funding is allocated annually and goes through a budget process, as I mentioned. And, a key factor here is to maintain a strong relationship with your authorizer, because your authorizer good standing form is one criteria for program eligibility. This program, information shared during this webinar is for informational purposes only, and program criteria and eligibility will be evaluated in writing once we have your program application. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth, our program lead, and take it from there. Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right, thank you, Katrina. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We will be starting with our table of contents. So here's an overview of what we will cover today. We'll begin with a program overview, then move into eligibility and best practices, followed by the application overview, and then after that, we'll discuss facility agreements, independent appraisals, reimbursable lease cost, program data and statistics, upcoming events, and finally, referenced materials and contact information. So our goal is to walk you through the main requirements and timelines so that you leave today with a clear understanding of what to prepare and submit on the application. So let's begin with the program overview for the 26-27 funding round. Program funding is projected to be approximately $190.9 million, compared with about $181.7 million in 2025-26 and $168 million in the 24-25 funding round. So the SB740 program is intended to assist charter schools serving high-need student populations. So to qualify, a school must either serve at least 55% of students meeting free and reduced price meals criteria, or be located in the attendance area of an elementary school with at least 55% FRPM eligibility. And you can also provide preference in admissions consistent with the program requirements. Next slide, please. So our program overview funding formula, this slide summarizes the basic funding formula a school's award is the lesser of the two calculations. So first we have the ADA-based cap, which for this round is estimated at $1,504 multiplied by the average daily attendance. Or the second is the 75% of reimbursable rent or lease cost. So the example here on the slide shows how it works in practice. In this case, the school's ADA cap is higher than the 75% of its annual reimbursable rent. So the projected award would be based on the lower amount. So this is an important concept just because even if a school has high lease cost, reimbursement is still subject to both the ADA cap and available program funding. And if the round is oversubscribed, which it has in the last couple rounds, final awards may be prorated. Next slide, please. Now moving on to good standing or eligibility and best practices, starting with good standing. Funding is for facility rent and lease costs for classroom-based instruction. So the sites have to be not owned by a school district or county office of education. So in other words, costs associated with district-owned or Prop 39 facilities are not eligible under this program. Second, good standing. Schools must be in compliance with their charter agreement and must not have pending corrective actions or a notice of intent to revoke. So if a school restores good standing by the end of the fiscal year, it may still become eligible. And that's with restoring it with their authorizer. And then the authorizer must contact CSFA directly with the updated good standing. Third, applicants must complete the legal status questionnaire and disclose relevant past or current legal, civil, criminal, or regulatory matters. And then with also a certification that the information submitted is true and correct. Fourth, we have our applicants with a new facility agreement must submit a list of school officials and the Form 700 filings. So these are required for applicable officials. And then lastly, applicants must also operate as a not-for-profit entity. Next slide, please. And now I will pass it off to my colleague Daniel, who will go over the PAE data record and the important 204 form. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel, and I will be going over the standard form 204, the PAE data record. The standard form 204, or STD 204 for short, is used by the state to obtain PAE information. It is required for any non-governmental entity or individual entering into a transaction that may lead to a payment from the state. The form contains necessary information for payees to receive payment without issues and is required for transactions with California state agencies. The form is used to add and update the award information to the financial information system for California, FISCAL for short, and we cannot make any changes without this form. Each state agency is required to requires a completed, signed, and dated STD 204 on file, so it is possible for you to receive this form from multiple state agencies which you do business. This form is available on the California Department of General Services website, and it can also be found on the link down here below on the bottom of this slide. Moving on to the next slide here, I'm going to go over section 1 of the PAE data record. It is the section that trips up most people on the form. So under section 1 here, under name, this is the name that appears on the payee's federal tax return and is subject to IRS TIN matching. The business name and DBA name, this is where you would put your name of your school or your DBA name. For example, if your TIN name is like the ABC Charter Company Incorporated, and your business is the ABC Charter Academy High School, this is then you would put the ABC Charter Company Incorporated in the name section, and then you would put the ABC Charter High School in the DBA section. This way you can, sorry, missed a slide there. View this one right here. So that way you can do the ABC Charter Academy High School in the DBA business name. This way everything lines up. Please note that the name on the federal tax return, the SCD form, and the applicant information, they must match. Reason being, if they don't match, what happens is we look at it and it causes name issues, and just having something simple as the ABC Charter Academy and versus the ABC Charter Academy High School, it causes issues because there could be the ABC Charter Academy Middle School, there could be the ABC Charter Elementary School, and without having proper names on everything, issues can arise with that. So having identical names will alleviate this and prevents it from us from having to reach back out to you, and will prevent delays from happening. So moving on to the next slide. So moving on to this would be the mailing address. The mailing address would be where you would actually receive the disbursements that you would get. This is the system itself right here. We don't get actually notified if there's any changes to this. So if there's any changes to your school's mailing address, you would need to provide a new STD 204 to us. If there's changes to the back office provider, or if the school moves to a new location, a new STD 204 will need to be provided. If the school moves or the back office provider changes locations and we are not informed, we won't know that, and we'll be working off of old data, unfortunately, and it could lead to delays into you getting your disbursements because we may accidentally send a disbursement to an old location and you may not get your check on time, and that requires us to reissue a check, send it to a new location, and you'll be wondering where your check's at. So anytime you move, anytime you change locations, you can reach out to us and get a new form, and we can work with you to get the new 204 put in place and get your information updated. And then that way you don't have to worry about delays. So even if the move is in the future, we can get it in place and you don't have to worry about any misrouted payments, and you'll be good to go there. And then after this, I would like to pass it along to Kim.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well and ready for another wonderful fiscal year. So now let's talk a little bit about the application. So the online application is now open on the CSFA's website. Application deadline is on Monday, August 31st, 2026 at 5 p.m. Please note that late applications will not be accepted, and only online applications will be accepted. If you have any technical questions or need supporting your application, please contact us early at our SB740 inbox at sb740@treasure.ca.gov. Next slide, please. The second application period. The second application period applies only to two types of school. One is the first-year charter schools, which are schools that anticipate beginning operations as a charter school in the fiscal year they submit an application. So this is like a brand new school. And two, for charter school that relocates from a facility that was ineligible for a grant award to a facility that is now eligible. And the application includes a description of the change in facility circumstances. So those are the only two exceptions that the school will submit in the second application period. If you don't fall into those two criteria and you apply in the second application period, your application is considered late and will not be accepted. The second application period opens on Thursday, September 10, 2026 at 9 a.m. and closes on Thursday, October 15, 2026 at 5 p.m. Next, please. Applications overview. What should you submit in your application? So application should be submitted under your school's name. Documents must be in PDF form with a maximum file size of 25 megabytes. Documents to submit with your application. Current valid charter petition. Approved authorizing board resolution regarding petition renewal approval. List of board members and with their terms and titles. Completed legal status questionnaire, also known as the LSQ, and certification signature pages. DocuSign is acceptable, and other documents such as board meeting minutes, resolutions, facility appraisals if applicable, updated leases if applicable, and new to this fiscal year will be a list of school officials and their Form 700 if applicable. I will go more into detail about that in a little bit. Next, please. Application overview continues. All facility and lease agreements must be current and fully executed by all parties. Each lease agreement should be scanned and uploaded separately. Please save your document by using the following naming convention: applicant - facility street address - term. So for example, we have XYZ Charter - 123 Main Street - from 2022 to 2027. Important note: each facility or rental agreement per facility site should be uploaded separately. And please combine any amendment and original lease as one single document with the most recent amendment first. Next, please. Facility agreements. There are two types of facility agreement. You either have a multi-year facility agreement or you have a new facility agreement. Multi-year facility agreement is any facility or lease agreement unchanged and approved from the most recent funding round. There is no need to resubmit with your application if you have already submitted in the prior year and it's current, meaning it has not expired and nothing has changed. New facility agreement needs one or more of the following: a rental or lease agreement for a facility not previously occupied by the charter school. So this is like a brand new site to the school. A lease agreement that includes a change in the lease space as compared to the previous year's lease, meaning increasing or decreasing in space. For example, you're adding a new classroom this year. That is now considered a new facility agreement. A modification of a prior lease agreement with a bona fide change in lessor. A new agreement for existing facilities or square footage when the existing lease agreement has fully expired. Exception: options to renew an existing rent or lease agreement on file with us executed by the charter school and their lessor will not be considered new facility agreement. Next, please. So these are examples of facility agreement types. So first, let's say your charter increases or decreases 50 square feet. That's a new facility agreement. If you sign a new lease with a new landlord for the same site and the same square footage, that is still a new facility agreement due to a change of landlord. If you open a new site, that's a new facility agreement. If you sign a new lease due to a full expiration of your current lease, that's a new facility agreement. And as you can see, if you have a new facility agreement, we would need an appraisal for that site and Form 700s from your school officials. Now, on the other hand, if you exercise a renewal option in last year's lease or your current lease was submitted and reviewed in prior round, that's considered multi-year agreement, so no appraisal is needed. Next, please. Form 700. So there is a change in your application this year that includes a Form 700 section instead of related party like in past applications. If you have a new facility agreement, we will require that you submit a list of your school officials and each member's Form 700. Per recommendations from the state auditor and California Code of Regulations, Section 10170.13, CSFA request Form 700, which is the Statement of Economic Interest, filed with the FPPC for all school officials. So basically, Form 700 was implemented starting in 25-26 as one of the ways for us to check for any potential conflict of interest. Your school official should have submitted Form 700 yearly to the FPPC, so we just need a copy of their most recent 700 forms. And as defined in Section V of Program Regulations, school official shall mean any designated board member, officer, or employee listed in the applicant's approved conflict of interest code and required to submit a statement of economic interest, Form 700, as prescribed by the California Political Reform Act, which is Government Code Section 87200. And Regulations 10170.6 D2 requires the most recent completed and submitted Form 700 from every school official listed in the most recent and complete list of school officials. All right, next, please. Now on to appraisals. Appraisal request. Independent appraisal will be required based on the following. Application meets program eligibility requirement. Applicant facility has a new facility agreement. Please note that facility should already be constructed and occupied by students. Contents of the appraisal. The appraisal shall be consistent with the Uniform Standard of Professional Appraisal Practice, or the USPAP, and at a minimum contain the following items. It must be completed by a certified general appraiser licensed by the California Department of Real Estate Appraisers. The appraiser shall not be a related party. The intended client shall be the charter school, and the user shall be the school finance authority for charter school facility grant program eligibility. And the appraisal should provide a fair market rent analysis, including a signed certification consistent with language found in the USPAP. We want to stress that we are looking for the fair market rent, which is the amount of money a property would rent or lease for if it was available at the time the appraisal was conducted. We're not really looking for what the property is worth as a whole. We just want to know what is the fair market rent for that space that you are leasing. And this appraisal will provide your award cap for the year, which I will get into next. Next, please. So there are two types of award caps. You are either a COLA cap or appraisal award cap. So for COLA award cap, fiscal year 26-27 is proposed at 2.41%. Please note that this is subjected to change, as this is just a proposed number and it is not finalized yet. And calculations are based on prior year eligible lease cost. Per program section, regulation section 10174.4 A18, reimbursable facility rent or lease costs do not exceed prior year's reimbursable cost on file with the authority, subject to an adjustment of the annual COLA index. So basically, we take your prior year eligible lease cost and we multiply that with current year COLA, and that will give us your COLA award cap. Now for appraisal award cap, that is the fair market rent value based on the appraisal report. Just to reiterate, fair market rent shall mean the amount of money a property would rent or lease for if it was available at the time the appraisal was conducted. And now I will hand it over to Elizabeth once again.
Thank you, Kim. So on this slide, I'll be walking through an example of how eligible lease cost caps are applied over multiple years. So as Kim mentioned, there are two types of caps that you'll see in the program, appraisal caps and COLA caps. So starting from the top in 22-23 funding round example, so the school's lease is evaluated using an appraisal. So this is like the first year that the school submits an application for reimbursement of the lease costs for this facility. So an appraisal is needed, is required along with the lease. So the appraisal comes in higher than the rent, and so then the full rent amount is eligible. In the following 2 years, in 23-24 and 24-25, the lease does not change. So instead of a new appraisal, the eligible lease costs are capped using the COLA increases, which are based on the prior year's eligible amount. Then in the 25-26 funding round, the school renews its lease and increases square footage. So because this is considered a new facility agreement, a new appraisal is required. In this case, the appraisal comes in lower than the rent, so the award is capped at the appraised value. And then finally, in the 26-27 funding round application, the lease is again capped using COLA, which was applied to the prior year's eligible lease cost. So the key takeaway here is that eligible lease costs are either capped by the appraisal when there is a new facility agreement, or square footage is increased, or additional suites are also included. So whenever there's a new facility agreement, an appraisal will be required. And then the COLA increases when there's no material changes to the lease will be applied. Now moving on to the next slide. So this slide shows recent program trends. While total funding has increased over time, eligible lease costs have also grown and in some years exceeded available funding. As a result, the pro rata or percentage of cost actually funded has declined in recent years. And so the key takeaway here is that the program is often oversubscribed. We are receiving more applications each funding round. So the schools should not expect the full reimbursement of eligible lease costs. We're kind of already seeing, we expect the trend to continue on to the 26-27 application funding round. And then I also just want to note that we have not received an allocation for other costs like we did in 22-23 and 23-24, and do not expect to get other cost allocations this year. But if anything changes, we will contact and let schools know if there's funding available for other costs in the 26-27 funding round. So just note that these figures and estimates are projections and subject to change. Next slide, please. And then here is just a graph, a visual as we discussed. So in blue, you'll see the total program funding, and in red, the total eligible lease cost requested by schools. And in recent years, you can see that the eligible costs are exceeding available funding in 24-25 and 25-26. So that gap is what drives the pro rata reductions we mentioned on the previous slide. Next slide, please. And now I will be passing it on to Daniel to go over upcoming events.
Hello again. Here we have the upcoming events slide. First, April 10th, which was last Friday, which was the start of the 26-27 funding round application period. Next, which coming up is August 31st, which would be the 26-27 funding round, close of the 26-27 funding round application period. so you need to get all your applications in by then. Next on the list is September 10th. This is the second application period for the 26-27 funding round. This is only for first-year charter applicants. Then on October 15th, this is when this round closes for the first-year charter applicants. So if you're a first-year charter applicant, you can apply September 10th as well. Moving on to the next slide. This would be the appendix reference materials slide. Here we have some links to our current regulations. We have links to the payee data record. We have links to the IRS website where you can look up information regarding your TIN. And then the bottom link here on the bottom, you can join our listserv too, if you're not already on listserv, or you can share the link and have people join the listserv as well. And then moving on to the next slide, which would be our contact information slide. Here is the contact information for everyone who's working on the program. Main email that everyone uses is the SB740@treasurer.ca.gov. You can send all questions there. Everyone who's in the program dumps into a the main email, so we all get that one. So you can send questions there. We can happily answer any questions you send there. And that would pretty much be it for the webinar. And I will turn it over to Elizabeth for the final slide here.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. So as you mentioned, the application is open now. It opened on Friday, April 10th. So please get started on your applications early. And we will be opening the webinar up to a Q&A. So we'll be reading some of the questions that we see in the chat. Those that we don't get to, we will be emailing directly to the contact via our SB740 inbox. We can start with facility questions.
I see one up here with Heather. The main thing is, are we eligible as a non-class-based school with 2 locations? So SB 740 reimburses classroom-based only. So if you are non-classroom based, then you can still apply if we have other costs. You know, we can reimburse you for other costs, but it wouldn't be leases cost. Leases cost, we reimburse classroom based.
Yeah, and so we take the ADA from CDE for classroom based. So that's why we do not include non-classroom based ADA.
And then we see Yvonne. How do I know if the STD 204 is on file for 2 LEAs? Go ahead and email us at the inbox with the schools that you are inquiring about, and we will let you know what address we have on file for the 204. And then that way, if it's not the address you want, you know, we can give you the form and then you can submit a new one so we can update that.
Yeah, I mean, so regularly, if nothing has changed, either the name or the address, then whatever we have on file should be fine. But you can always email us to make sure we have the most updated information. But if you do know that you'll be changing the name or are moving location, please do submit a new 204 form. That way, and ahead of time, that way disbursements are not held up, because our accounting department cannot disperse anything to the state controller until those that payee data record 204 form is submitted and approved.
Does the payee data record form 204 have to be done every year? No. Can I assume that we already have one since we got our SB 740 last year?
Yes. So yes. Yes. But again, you can confirm that. You can email us. Just let us know what school.
Yep. Our school will have a new TK site and was approved for SB 740 for the old site. Do I have to apply in the second application time period? No. So the second application period is for new school. But if you're already if you just open a new site, no, you would apply in the first application period. Just to clarify, Form 700 is only required if there is a new facility agreement, or do you need it for all applicants? So Form 700 is for sure if you have a new facility agreement, but we could also request Form 700 from you even if you don't have a new facility agreement. But if you don't have a new facility agreement, you do not have to submit it with your application. If we need it, we will contact you directly and request it. In the past, if you have not had an appraisal in the last 3 years, even with no change to the lease agreement, you need to get an updated appraisal. Is this still required? No. So an appraisal is valid for 3 funding rounds. So let's say you want to use an appraisal for 26-27 when you submit it in, let's say, 21-22, we would not be able to use it. You would have to get a new one if you want to use it. So we can only use an appraisal that was submitted to us within the last 3 funding rounds, but you don't have to get it every 3 years. Remember, as long as nothing changes, if you have any change in the lease, then yes, an appraisal will be required because that is now considered a new facility agreement and no longer a multi-year agreement.
Okay, and then we have a question here. So as per slide 7, other program costs will not be paid out in 20. So as of now, for the governor's budget, there is no other cost allocation. So no, there is no funding for other costs at the moment. We didn't have any last year as well. So we anticipate that we probably will not be getting another allocation this year for 26-27. But if you do, you can still submit for other costs just in case anything does change during the funding round, but we don't anticipate receiving an allocation for it.
Do I understand correctly that lease cost changes that do not constitute a new facility lease are then capped at COLA? Yes. Yes, but if it has been a really long time since you have an appraisal and your lease cost jumped up significantly, then it's up to you. If you would like to get an updated appraisal, then that is fine. You could submit it to us. Do you award the grant as applications come in, or all awards happen in September?
Generally, we do wait until the application closes in September to begin reviewing the applications, just so that we have the full count. And while like the application is live, the portal, things can be changed. So we kind of have to wait until the application closes to ensure that we have the most up-to-date information and nothing is changed in the meantime.
Do you have a list of approved vendors for the lease appraisal? We do not. Whoever is you find, just make sure that they are certified and they have a license with the California Department of Real Estate Appraisers. For an existing awardee that is moving to a new site, is the appraisal the main cap on the award and the new site, or the ADA, or the lesser of the two? The presentation seems to indicate cap for new schools was set entirely for appraisal. Okay, so for an award for the schools is based on either you are ADA or you are lease cost cap. Either you are ADA cap or lease cost cap. Lease cost cap is based on whether if you are COLA or appraisal. So for a brand new site, we won't be able to use COLA because we don't have a prior year eligible lease cost for us to add COLA to. So that will be appraisal. So between the appraisal and your rent Whatever is lower, that will be your eligible lease cost. And we take that eligible lease cost and we compare it to the ADA. If your ADA is higher, then your eligible lease cost for that year would just be whatever the lease, whether it's the lease or it's the appraisal, whatever is lower. But if the ADA is lower, then your cap for that year will be the ADA, and that's going to be the amount that you're going to get. And don't forget, your eligible lease cost is 75%. You don't get the whole amount. It's 75% or ADA.
So if a school is applying for the first time, do we need to have an appraisal completed, correct? Yes, you will need to submit an appraisal with the fair market rent analysis. Without that, we can't calculate the award amount.
Is there a schedule for expected annual payments? I like a calendar when expect checks are possible.
So the first disbursement is set for processing by October 31st. It really depends sometimes how long it takes, about 6 to 8 weeks for accounting and then the state controller's office to process. So you should be receiving the first disbursement sometime around the end of December, beginning of January. That's when you should be receiving the check. And then the second disbursement is sent for processing in March, by March 31st. So expected within 6 to 8 weeks after that. And then the final one, the final disbursement is done after we've finished or completed our true up, which is done in the summer. So typically the funding round closes June 30th, and then we have we have to wait until we receive the P2 ADA. So you can expect to receive the true up disbursement will go out in like August, and then 6 to 8 weeks after that you'll receive it in the mail.
We are opening a second site on a county-wide authorized school. Should we apply in first or second round? So if you are just open like an extra site, no, you apply in the first round. The second round is only for first time school and school that moves from relocate from an ineligible to eligible. We have 2 facilities and are submitting under criteria 2, an elementary attendance boundary with higher than 55% FRPM. Second site is in the boundary, first is not. Can we submit for reimbursement for both sites or only the one in the qualifying elementary boundary? You would submit both sites. Please explain once more when a new appraiser is required, when you have a new facility agreement. And new facility agreement falls under what if you have a new lessor, if you have a change in space, if your lease had fully expired and you're doing another lease, and that is a new facility agreement, then you would need an appraisal.
Yeah, Daniel, can you go back to that slide with the new facility agreements?
Yes, one moment real quick.
We've been receiving a lot of questions on that. And then just to know, this will be posted to the SB740 website. It does take a couple of days for it to be processed through our admin and then get posted. But this will all be on the recording, and the slides will be on the SB740 website.
For a school that went over material revision, there is no board resolution. So what document can we send on the approval of changing location? Elizabeth, do you know the answer to this one?
Let's see. I think this one, let us review, and then we will email you for more information.
A follow-up on the appraisal question. We have had the same agreement for a number of years, and the agreement is good through June 30th, 2028. There are 3 facilities that have not had appraisals in the last 3 years. Why need to get appraisal on these 3 buildings? No, if nothing has changed, you don't have to, you don't need to. If nothing has changed. And it's you just getting, if nothing has changed, like no new lessor or no changes in space, then you do not need a new appraisal. We do not have an estimate yet. Right?
Yeah,
no,
that will not happen until pretty much around true up. So until next summer. We don't know how many applications we'll receive yet, and what the lease cost will be for that. So that will not be determined until you'll get like an estimate during the initial award notice, but you'll know closer to the true up next year what the pro rata rate will be.
And Gary's question, can this question include it if a school is new to the program, it will need an appraisal even if it has an existing lease, correct? Yes, sir. It will need an appraisal for us to know what the award cap will be for that site.
Yeah, so just a good rule of thumb is whenever there is a new lease or any changes to the lease, an appraisal will be needed. Without that, we can't calculate the award.
And I do want to add one more thing. So this pertains to the application itself. Let's say if you forgot to submit a document or want to make a change to the application, please note that once you have submitted it, we cannot reopen your application. So what happens after that is the next step for you to do is just email us at sb740@treasurer.ca.gov, and we can save your additional documents and make any necessary changes on our end. Please don't do another application or anything like that once you have submitted it, okay? Just email us with what you wanted to add to your application or what changes you want, and then we'll do it on our end for you.
All right, I think that wraps up the Q&A. Maybe we'll take one last one. Let's see. So we have a second lot, which is used for parking and storage. And this year, 25-26, they did an appraisal, increased the monthly lease cost from $2,000 to $4,000 per month. Is the second lot eligible for reimbursement as well?
I would say we handle that one in writing when we see the documents. So
yes.
Again, most of these in the hypothetical are, we're trying to be helpful, but without seeing actual documentation. Yeah, I think an email or the actual lease associated would be ideal. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah, Casey, we'll reach out to you if you could provide more information, and then we'll get back to you. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. We hope this webinar has helped clarify the key requirements, timelines, and best practices for the 26-27 SB7 funding round. So just please continue to monitor the SB740 website for resources and updates, and then send us any follow-up questions to the SB740 inbox. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you during the funding round. All right.
Great job,
Thank
Kim.
you, everyone.
Great job, Daniel. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.